Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. Mr. Katz, will you lead us in the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing and join the board in a moment of silence as we honor our first responders and our veterans. Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We have two hearings this evening. I'm going to ask Clerk Rivera to please read the first hearing notice.
Application of Samantha Rossi for a special use permit pursuant to Chapter 550 of the Code of the Incorporated Village of Mineola, entitled Zoning, Section 550-12, entitled B1 Districts, subsection B, entitled Special Uses, to establish a personal training studio upon the property known as 263 Jericho Turnpike, Mineola, New York, known and designated on the Nassau County Land and Tax Map as Section 9, Block 394, Lot 26.
Okay, thank you. Mr. O'Keefe, affidavit of mailings?
Yes, they've been received, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Gibbons?
Nassau County Planning Commission has recommended local determination, and it asks for a resolution declaring this a Type 2 action under CEQA.
Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Motion by Trustee Salaski, seconded by Trustee Casado. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. For this application and for the next application as well, this is how it's going to work. We're going to ask the applicant to please come up to the podium, state their name clearly, their relationship to the applicant, make their presentation, at the conclusion of which the board members will interact with the applicant. Then we will open it up to public comment. We ask the applicant to take note of any questions or concerns. At the end of the public comment, we will then ask the applicant to return to the podium to address any questions that the public may have had and any further questions that the board may have. So with that, I'd like to ask anyone here on behalf of the application for Samantha Rossi to please approach the podium.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm Sam,
I'm Junior.
and we are IFT, Iron Fortress
Wait,
Training.
Sam, I'm just going to ask you to direct your presentation to us. We
Yes,
also have
okay,
a
sorry.
court reporter here. So your first name, last name, an address, it could be the business address.
Sure.
And then your relationship to the applicant. In this case, you are the applicant.
Okay, Samantha Rossi, 263 Jericho Turnpike, Mineola, New York, 11501.
Okay.
Iron Fortress Training. Is that
Go.
okay?
So tell us, that's perfect. Go ahead and tell us a little bit about what you are seeking.
Okay, well, I'm Sam. This is my partner, Junior. And we are Iron Fortress Training. We're a personal training facility. We specialize in one-on-one personal training. Max we do is partner training.
My name is Hermes Gonzalez, but you guys can call me Junior, from Iron Fortress Training. So what we offer to all our members is one-on-one training. We are private to the client. We give all our services when it comes to one-on-one training, nutrition plans, supplementation advices, coaching, to our client, making the facility private, fully to them. Because when you go to a regular gym, you purchase personal training, but the whole gym is public. And this entire idea came after COVID, because not a lot of people want to be in public gyms or waiting for equipment. And we have had some feedback from clients in the past that they don't like to go to other gym studios because they see the trainer with 7 clients, with 10 clients, or it's just free weights. So what we want to do is a big, fully loaded gym that is gonna have bodybuilding style equipment, CrossFit equipment,
Not CrossFit,
but
bodybuilding.
but free weight equipment, high intensity, but we are not a CrossFit gym. We are an entire gym fully loaded to the client. We are gonna offer also more amenities to stress relieve the client if they have stressful days, or they are tired, or they are sore from the workout that is going to involve therapy equipment like compression for the legs, for the arms, massagers, infrared saunas, all this equipment that is going to help the client feel better mentally and physically. And again, stating that by the time that you come and train with us, the whole gym is available just for you. You are not going to have to wait for equipment, for dumbbells. You are paying for privacy, for exclusivity, and for the time, the entire gym just for you.
Outstanding. Okay. Can I just ask you a few things? What will be your days of operation and your hours of operation?
So we will be working from 5 a.m. until 9 p.m., but our busiest times are going to be always before business hours and after business hours.
Okay. What about 7 days a week?
Yeah,
7 days a
How
week.
many Sundays? We
Well,
only do Sundays sometimes. It depends.
it all depends, yeah.
It depends on what if we have people that want to train on those days, but.
Yeah, since we are by appointment only,
Right.
if some clients are like, I missed this day, can you train me on Sunday? So we can schedule them according to their sessions.
And the number of employees is just going to be the two of you to start, or will there
Yeah,
be?
To start,
the
yeah.
two of us to start. Max will be just 4 employees because we still want to give the privacy to the client. We don't want to have 10 trainers and 10 clients when the space is not going to feel private.
Okay, now you mentioned, something about not being CrossFit, so none of this will be done outdoors, all of it will be
No.
contained
Yeah.
inside the gym, there will be no running around the block
No.
and
No.
rolling tires down the street?
No. Our facility is a 3,000 square foot place, and all the bodybuilding equipment, the turfing, or any rower or bikes are inside the gym.
Yeah, we have all the
Again.
equipment. We have like treadmills, Stairmasters,
Oh.
bikes, things like that, but everything inside.
Yeah, and at the same time, because the feedback from our clients is we like that it's private. We come here because I want to lose 100 pounds and I don't feel confident running around the block or being in the public. So I come here because it's enclosed, it's private.
Now, you mentioned something about stress relief and all that, and you're gonna have a daycare next door, so I'm sure that you're gonna have some stressful parents who may wanna come over to you.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
decompress.
So it's a good
That may work.
thing to offer.
Food, you will not be
No.
providing any food or anything?
No.
Shakes, perhaps? No.
Not-
Just clients can bring them, but
Yeah,
you're not gonna
they-
be
No.
Yeah, it's not
juice
that.
bars, none of that?
No, it's not that we'll provide for them.
Okay. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I have no questions. I think it looks like a very typical private training gym. So I wish you well if you do come to Mineola. All I ask is that when you get approved, if you just work closely with our building department on any signage or anything else that requires, I see some drawings and stuff, so just make sure you're working closely with building department for permits and signage and all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you for choosing Mineola.
Mhm.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us, yeah.
Trustee Casado?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening.
Good evening.
So I just can't walk in. I would have to call and make an appointment. That's what's happening?
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
That's it. No question.
Okay.
So it's not generally, I mean, of course, people can walk in to inquire
Yeah,
about
to-
making
No,
a
no, but I
appointment.
mean, I just can say, and give me a treadmill. No, you have to, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you have to be a member, like a client
Yeah.
that has personal training with us
Okay,
in order to do that.
okay.
And we say member as well because, so we have a location in Queens, and this is us expanding into Mineola. We just moved to Hempstead maybe a year and a half ago.
Yeah,
And, long story short, I got laid off from my job, and we've always wanted to expand in Long Island, and the stars kind of just aligned. I was supposed to get another job, and I was supposed to start. They gave me the offer letter, they gave me my office, everything, and they took it back. I have no idea why to this day, but he came home and told me, hey, why don't we do this for real? And I was like, okay.
and
So
here we are.
And here you are.
here
Yeah.
we are.
Great. Well, we're glad that you ended up here, and we
Thank
wish you
you.
all the best. Trustee Clark?
So this will be your third location? Second
This is the
location.
second
What's
location,
the first location, Queens?
Queens.
Okay, and then what was in Hempstead?
No, they,
Oh, you live in Hempstead,
Yeah,
okay.
we live in Hempstead.
So do you have any, how many clients do you have in Queens?
So in Queens, it's just a 400 square foot garage where we started when the pandemic started. So it was getting cold because I was training my clients at the park with a wagon and bringing all the dumbbells to the park. It was getting cold, and my clients were like, we want a place to continue training. We don't want to train at the park. She found this garage, and then we make sure to not make that garage look like a garage. So,
Speak easy vibes, if you
Yeah.
will.
so it's a 400 square foot. And right now, the question was how many clients
Yes.
we have, right? No, so every hour is just 2 clients, and we usually train people from 5 till 10. So we are 2 trainers, 2 clients. They go, the other 2 clients come. They go, the other 2 clients come. So I have around 15 clients. The other trainer has around 16 clients too, and it's always like this, like they come and go, come and go, come and go.
Okay, and how many years are you in business?
I have been a trainer since 2015, but we opened into 2021, yeah. And now things happen where I always wanted to expand to Long Island, and as she said, the opportunity just came where we were just like, let's just do it, let's expand right now and make it a legit commercial front gym.
Okay, thank you.
thank you, trustee Clark. Trustee Solosky.
I really have 2 concerns that probably meld into one. You're abutting right to a daycare center, and then right behind you is the residential homes. So I'm concerned about noise, especially starting at 5 a.m. The noise to the residents back there. And then I'm also concerned about like music or equipment dropping
Yeah.
when you have that daycare next to you with teachers trying to get children to nap.
Yeah,
Now, I know you said most of your busy time is, I guess, 5 a.m. and then after
Yeah.
business hours. And don't quote me, I think the daycare is probably open till around 6. So that's my major concern, loud music to the residents or to the daycare, and just the vibration of a floor or the walls
Yeah.
as clients are dropping weights. And maybe I'm totally wrong in this, but if you could
yeah,
allay my
Yeah, sure.
concerns.
I just
So-
want to say one thing first.
okay.
We don't drop weights where we are. Yeah, we have our weights I'm so sorry. We don't drop weights. It's more in the style of bodybuilding, and our equipment is from the UK. It's just very expensive equipment, and that's why we do personal training. So someone is always with the client, where nothing is going to be dropped or anything, like loud noises, banging.
Okay.
In that front, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah, and when it comes to the flooring that we have, we make sure to not go with a thin flooring. It's stall mats that is a very thick material, and right now it's the same flooring that we have in Queens, and it's in the middle of all residential. And in these 2 years, we haven't had one complaint from anybody that is right around us. And when it comes to music, since it's personal training, we have to be explaining things to the client. So we will never be blasting loud music, because I always are asking questions. How do you feel? Do you feel okay? Where do you feel it? So the music always have to be on the lower end.
Would doors or windows to the fitness center ever be open at any point? And I just thought
Yeah.
of that because this past weekend I was walking by a gym and they had all the doors open and I could hear the music.
They will not be open,
Okay?
because we go back to the privacy idea that we have. You will not even be able to see the inside of the gym from outside, because you have to go through a lobby to get to the gym. So we want to keep that privacy, when we don't want to be all open to make the client feel kind of weird. Yeah,
Okay, thank you
insecure.
very much.
Okay, Thank you very much. You can have a seat,
Thank
if you
you.
don't mind. Thank you. Anyone in the third row? Anyone in the fourth row? Fifth row? Sixth row? Seventh row? Okay, come on up again. Apparently, they weren't all here for you. I don't know. Okay, as the deputy mayor said, that if you should get approved tonight, please be sure to stay in touch with Mr. O'Keefe over there, with the building department. Anything you do, if you have any questions or doubts, he can certainly help you, and in many ways even protect you from, contractors that may be, kind of sending you askew. Also, in the decision, we're probably going to include that at the very least, any rear doors facing the residential area or any windows have to remain closed.
Yeah.
It's one thing if you have a door open facing Jericho Turnpike away from the residential area, but anything that abuts that first residential home there has to be closed at all times,
Yeah.
okay? Yep, you have any
Can I say
questions for us? Sure.
All the wall from side to side that face the residential is all cemented.
Yeah.
There's no windows, there's no doors back to
Okay.
the residential, so we will
Okay.
not be having.
So that will be
Our
easy.
doors are facing Jericho.
Yeah, just Jericho.
So that's easy. Okay, anyone else on the board have any questions? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion.
Motion by Deputy Mayor Sartori. Do I have a second?
Second?
Second by Trustee Salaski. Mr. Rivera, please poll the board.
Trustee Clark.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sartori.
Yes.
Trustee Casada.
Yes.
Trustee Salaski.
Yes.
Mayor Pereira.
Yes, congratulations and
Thank
welcome
you.
to Mineola.
Yeah.
And I will also say this, that because, and not just because we have several members present here this evening, but we do have a vibrant and strong Chamber of Commerce that we hope that you will join. And many members are here this evening that will, I'm sure, share their contacts with you, welcome you to Mineola.
Thank you.
When you are ready and complete and ready to go, we would love to be part of any kind of ribbon cutting. The chamber brings the scissors and the ribbon.
Awesome.
And I bring the proclamations. So, again, welcome to Mineola. Stay in touch with our building department, reach out to our chamber, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you
Okay?
so much.
Now we just got to get you to move from Hempstead to Mineola.
Yeah.
And that segues to our next presentation, because maybe you'll find a place to move. Okay, you good? So, we closed that, right? So that's closed. Okay, I'll ask Mr. Rivera to read the next application.
Application of Pasquale Investor for a special permit pursuant to Chapter 550 of the Code of the Incorporated Village of Mineola entitled Zoning, Section 550-15.2, entitled Jericho Turnpike Overlay District, to construct 18 residential units upon the property known as 157-161 Jericho Turnpike, Mineola, New York, known and designated on the Nassau County Land and Tax Map as Section 9, Block 405, Lot 158.
Thank you. And again, I went over before, so no need to repeat myself, but I would ask that anyone approaching the podium, please state your name clearly, and again, your relationship to the applicant, business or personal address, and speak clearly into the microphone, direct your comments to the board, and then we will invite the public for comment. So, come on up. Oh, Mr. O'Keefe, do we have an affidavit of mailings? Yes, you received the affidavit of mailings. Thank you. Mr. Givens?
Yes, Nassau County Planning Commission has recommended local determination, and I'd ask for a resolution declaring this a type 2 action under CEQA.
Entertain a motion by trustee Casada. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by deputy mayor Sartori. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I was just making sure you were paying attention. Mr. Givens. Okay, Mr. Lebrano?
Okay, I'm Tony Lubrano, 159 Jericho Turnpike. I am, Pasquale Investors is a partnership comprised of myself and my three brothers. I am the presiding member. I want to thank this board for allowing us the opportunity to do this presentation. And I'm going to turn it over to my good friend David Mamina, who will explain what the project is about.
Thank you.
David Mamina, architect, Mammina, 2820 Shipyard Lane, East Marion, New York. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Board of Trustees. We do appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. As you all know, this is a long time coming, but here we are. And what I would like to do tonight is present to the board an application for your consideration for the Jericho Turnpike Overlay District, which we were certainly very excited to see go into place. And again, as I'm sure that you're all aware, the site is essentially directly across the street in what was the Piccolo Bussola restaurant, which unfortunately burned, and is proposed to be redeveloped within the structure of the Jericho Turnpike Overlay District as 18 apartments. And I'll just give a brief, on that before I go through the criteria that we're required to comply with for the board to consider. But essentially, again, before specifics of the floor plans and things, the site of the building, as I said, is directly across the street.
Mr. Mamina, I'm sorry, but we're taping this, so you're gonna have
Oh,
to stay.
okay, I can do
Yeah,
that.
Yeah, can you, or you can move that a little closer if you'd like, or, yeah, there you go.
I forgot.
Move
Oh,
the
this?
sign.
The sign, yeah.
Okay.
Hey, yep, perfect.
There we go.
Nobody wants to see Mr. Lebrano anymore.
He can hide back there. But, essentially, we're on that existing site. The firehouse, is directly then to the west, of us, and then the existing retail, is to the east. And, in conformance with the structure of the overlay zone, we are proposing 3 stories of residential above a story of parking. Now, as the ordinance, there we go. Okay, thank you. As the ordinance puts in front of us, we are adding at the lower level of the street level of the building what would be what we call spandrel glass, so you're not going to see through it, but the parking would be behind that. The parking will be on grade, and the building will then be up above that, so that when it's nighttime and there are cars that might be maneuvering in the garage there, you're not going to see, their headlights and things through that. The parking things is exclusively for the tenants of the building. And as I said, we have 18 units, in there, of which 6 are 2 bedrooms and 12 are 1 bedrooms. So the entrance to the building is on that easternmost side, and you'll see from the floor plans, it opens to a small lobby area, where the elevator is, and there'll be, a mail area in there as well to serve the residents. And you'll see also on the plans that from the parking side of the building, there's access then to that same lobby in there, which would be controlled with probably a key fob kind of a thing, for that. As I said, it's exclusively for the use of the residents. But speaking also to the parameters of the new zoning, having context within the community, within what I look at as what would Mineola look like if it was 1930, what would those buildings look like, and we've picked that up directly from the building that is 2 doors down from here, where they use a brick facade, and they then have articulation around the windows. They have a parapet up on the top of the building, which steps up and down, for some further articulation of that. And when I get to all of the specific heights, I'll go through the numbers, but essentially the roof of the building is at that 40-foot level. The parapets are a little bit taller than that, and I'll give you the specifics, on that, but they will not only add aesthetics to the elevation, but they will also block any mechanical equipment and things that might be on the building, which will be placed, you know, carefully so that we make sure that that's being taken advantage of you know, in that way. So I will, we can come back to that at any point that, I'm sorry, we can come back to that at any point that we would like to, but let's go to the criteria and what we have in the building. So just in terms of the configuration of the site, Jericho Turnpike is up at the top, okay, to the north, and then to the south is Washington Avenue. And what makes the site unique is that we have all access and things from Washington Avenue. There will be no vehicular traffic coming in from Jericho Turnpike or leaving the site from Jericho Turnpike. So it is completely isolated in that way, which we think, as I said, is unique and is very positive in terms of the development. We do have 27 cars in here, which fits within the requirements of the zoning, and I'll go through that. And when I go down my list, we do have an area for refuse dumpsters in there. There would be private carting for that, and those dumpsters would then be in that area, screened then from anything else, and would be picked up then on Washington Avenue. We do have a space in here for mechanical equipment. We have a little bit more up in here. While those may not be of a lot of importance to the village board, but I'd like to put on the record that these may move around a little bit depending upon where the utility companies are going to want to see meters, where they might want to see devices that are going to feed water, you know, those sorts of things. But that would not affect the exterior in any way. The entrance to the lobby, as I said, is up in this corner. We have the lobby in here. We have an elevator that then goes up from there. We have an egress stair in there for emergency egress, and we have another one up here on the western side of the building. So essentially, these spaces are open to the sky. These spaces are underneath the building. And by picking the building up, we were able to create the amount of cars that are required to meet the standards of the ordinance. So within the body of the zoning, of course, everything is at the discretion, you know, of the board, but it does permit multifamily residential. Its requirements are that the front yard be the front yard is a 0 setback, so there is no setback. Same is true for the side yards in here, 0, 0. And it speaks to a rear yard, but we really don't have a rear yard per se because it's a through lot in there. So a minimum rear yard of 20 feet, you know, is more than complied with. Now, the maximum building height as it is written is 40 feet or 3 stories. And we have used the 40-foot height as our parameter within this. We do have 3 stories of residential, but that lowest level of the building, which would be the level at grade, is parking. So again, for the consideration of the board. We meet the criteria of the maximum lot width in that 60 feet, you know, is required, and you know, we have substantially more than the 60. The maximum building coverage that's permitted is 80%, and we've got 47%. And the minimum depth of the lot is 100 feet, but again, it's a through lot, and so clearly, you know, we meet that criteria. The multifamily residential requires 1.5 parking spaces per unit, which requires 27 spaces. We have 27 spaces. The parking space size within the village ordinance is 10 feet by 20. We are proposing that 9 of those spaces would be 9 feet by 18 feet, and 14 of the spaces would be 9 feet by 20 feet. And our opinion, my opinion, is that this is not a shopping center where cars are going in and out, on a regular basis. Having 1.5 cars means that every apartment is going to have 1 car plus in there. So people are just going to be coming in where they come in every day, and they'll have ample maneuvering room in there, and the space per parking space will work within the configuration. Of course, I could eliminate some parking spaces and make up that width, but I don't think that in this instance that would be the most logical way, in my opinion, to approach it. I'd rather maximize the parking and reduce the width of the parking space on a minimal basis. One of the other requirements, which I think is important, to address is that there are minimum sizes and square footage to how big each unit needs to be. And they're very generously sized units, and they are in accordance with the ordinance. So each one of the 1-bedroom apartments is at 750 square feet or exceeds 750 square feet. And that's as a gross calculation. And the 2-bedroom apartments have to be 900 square feet, and all of those are over 1,000 feet. So they'll be very nice 2-bedroom apartments as well. I could talk about the apartments for a second, even though it really is not a component, of what is being considered within this. But I think it's good to see that, again, down below the lobby then comes in this corner, and the elevator then opens to this central corridor. The units are essentially typical. The units all have washers and dryers in them. The 2-bedroom apartments have 2 bathrooms, 2 full bathrooms in there. The 1-bedroom has a single in there. We've got ample closet space in each one of those. We've got a very nice U-shaped kitchen, and we've got generous living room and dining room space, and plenty of light and air, as you see from the color elevation that we did. So this would be the typical 2nd, 3rd, and 4th floor. So now, as we look at the building elevation again, and we look at the dimensions that I had pointed to, and I'll talk a little bit more about the brick as well. Our first floor of the building is set at 11 feet because I need a little more height in there in order to get the cars, to have ample height in order to create those parking spaces in there for the vehicles, and then also for whatever structural system we'll have in there without getting into too much detail. Then our apartments from floor to floor, we have 9'8" in there. That's including the structure. So we would have 8-foot ceilings, probably about 8'2" in there. Adding all these dimensions up, as we show at the top, we're 40 feet below where that first floor is. So the first floor, 0 feet, 0 inches, and the roof at 40. So that'd be the roof where you're walking. And then above that, we then go up another 4'8" to that upper parapet section in the center, and then we're up 2'4" to the piece that steps in that very first step in there, so that we get that movement up and down. This would be cast stone copings on the top, so it looks like a limestone coping up there, and then the brick. Looking at other buildings of this vintage, we have what's called soldier course bricks in there, so they stand vertically in there. We have a double width of that. We carry that around the parapet as well. We carry it around each of the windows in here, and then we have a double level of soldier course in there. We have some stone veneer down at the bottom. So if you were to take a look at the I forget what tenants they are that are in there, that are just a few doors down, you'll see, these same features are within that. So, I mean, what we are trying to do, is as the ordinance points to, make something look like what the environment around it looks like. And I think we've achieved that. Let me just take one more second, and I have a color one of that. Let me go to the color one. The side of the building will also be brick. Now, we're not permitted to have any windows on the side in there. If we were to put a window in, it would have to have a fire shutter, as I'm sure Mr. Keefe would know what we're talking about. It would be very commercial looking, and essentially, yeah, I would love to break this up with some windows. But as I looked at the firehouse as well, they have some windows, but not that much really, in there. But what we've done is we've taken the brick in a pattern and we've worked that around that, and then also we have a similar treatment to the parapet in that area. And then where we're showing the parking beyond that is open to the sky in there, we would have what I call an estate fence on there. So it would look like a wrought iron fence, except it's, they're made of aluminum now. So that's where that other parking would be in the rear of the building. And I think that is the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Mamina. We appreciate that. And I will say, before we open it up to questions from the board, is that, as I've said here before, I guess going back to the end of last year, probably October or November, when we had the hearings on the overlay districts, the Jericho overlay district and the historic overlay district in the downtown. When I was first elected mayor, one of the visions that I had is that we had to rethink retail in our main corridor, Jericho Turnpike, as well as our downtown. And not to rehash everything, but we met with an urban planner, Paul Greigel. We walked this area. We had several meetings, Mr. Gibbons, myself, and Mr. Greigel at that time. The board was also later on brought in on it, the discussions, and we thought that storefronts and retail, as we know it, is not going to exist in the future. We had to think outside of the box a little bit, and this is not unique to Mineola. This type of development has been done in other parts of the tri-state area, and I thought that it was worth at least a look, that it was worth entertaining applications such as this, and to see where it went. And frankly, better than an empty storefront, or better than a restaurant or a commercial use or retail use that keeps turning over, is perhaps having people, as we had that young couple here before, about moving, giving them an opportunity to either move to Mineola or to stay in Mineola in a centrally located area, close to shopping, close to a hospital, great schools, and this gives it that opportunity without perhaps breaking the bank with some of the other developments that we have entertained in the downtown. So for me, it was worth the look. It was worth, and I think that it has been received very well by people who are in this business of land use and planning and development, that we are at least looking for a solution to a problem, really a solution to two problems: solution to empty storefronts and a solution to the need for housing on Long Island. If you have been paying attention, the governor, from the governor to everyone just about on down, housing has been front and center of a lot of discussions coming out of Albany, although the method hasn't really been, in my opinion, the right approach. We here in the village, I think, are taking the right approach, a local approach, a one thing at a time approach, and at least we get to hear the residents. It's not being dictated to us by bureaucrats in Albany that have never been to Mineola, that don't understand the history of it, that don't know that the building 2 doors down looks similar to this, that don't know that this, has a firehouse to the west. So this is just to kind of put it in context. A few questions that I have, Mr. Mamina, is as we have with similar developments, although albeit larger developments, the parking spots, how will they be assigned, number one? And number two, will there be an additional charge for the parking spots, or are they included in the rent?
I think I'd leave that to Mr. Lebrano.
My understanding is the village requires that any parking be included in the rent and not as a surcharge, so as to make sure that people say, oh, the heck with it, I'll just park on the street. So it will be, one parking spot will be included with each apartment. I'm not sure, we haven't really thought out how we'd handle the other spots, if somebody wanted a second spot, or if we just leave them for visitors. We haven't really thought that far ahead, but the original spot will be included in the rent.
Okay, very good. And I guess another question for you, Mr. Lebrano, is these are 18 units. Will there be a super on site who will be taking care of any maintenance or anything like that? Will there be someone there if something goes wrong, or will this be up to you and your family?
More me than my family, but yes. It's not that big of development to actually have a full-time super there for 18 units. My intention is I do have people who work here in Mineola, who used to work for me as well in the restaurant, who are local, who've done repairs for me in the past in all my locations. And my intention was to hire them as, something goes wrong, come down and take care of this kind of thing. I do plan on being here on a regular basis. My intention was at least once a week to make sure that everything is kept in order, the parking lot's clean, there's no trash anywhere, the weeds and stuff. And then I also have one of my tenants, when it was the restaurant, was my chef, who still works for me, my Huntington location, who still lives in Mineola because he wanted to keep his kids in this school district, has already asked me, when the building goes up, do I get an apartment back? And part of the deal would be is that he would be my person on site to, if middle of the night something happens, he's the one I call.
Very good. Mr. Mamina, just to be clear now, the brick wraps around the entire building.
Yes, including the rear of the building, that would face Washington.
Right, and forgive me, I'm not a building superintendent, but why, if there's a parking lot between you and the firehouse, why are you not allowed to have windows on the western wall?
Yeah, the building code does not permit you to have any openings in the building until you reach 3 feet back, 15 feet back. I'm trying to remember, the numbers, that are in there. And then as you move back, it permits you to have more and more open area. When you hit 15 feet, you can have windows. And it's a fire, it's a fire apparatus, it's a firefighting thing. It also has to do with a fire that might start inside this building. There's no building next door to this now, but there probably never will be. But I mean, that's the way the code works.
Interesting.
On that.
Access to the roof. The access to the roof will only be for mechanicals. There is no recreational space or any amenity or anything like that on the roof.
And we have only a hatch to the roof, which the code will permit you a hatch to the roof based on the size of this building. And the only reason why it's only a hatch, in my opinion, is because we would be adding more height, to the building in that way. And, we wanted to respect, that height, because I personally think that it's very good and it makes sense.
Okay, I will reserve some questions for later, and I don't want to take all the questions. So, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. Hi.
Hello.
I have a couple of questions. So first, the parking area. One question was, are you doing any kind of e-spaces where people could plug in if they have a Tesla or something?
Haven't thought about it, but it sounds like a good idea.
Because I don't know how that functions. I don't know if it takes away a spot, if it's some kind of fire laws around that. So just consider that and, keep us aware of.
First, it was brought up, I really hadn't given that thought, but it certainly makes a lot of sense considering that that's the way the future is going.
Exactly.
So if it's, I don't know how it works,
Okay.
is it, but
Yeah, just
Well,
something to
certainly
consider. I mean,
absolutely
we're building a
consider.
building that could be there for 100 years. There probably would not be gas cars in 100 years.
Right.
So just something to consider.
thank you, I didn't think of that.
Then my other question is, I'm familiar with the property. The front of Jericho currently has a curb cut, I know from the restaurant. So what happens with that curb cut now? Is it to the right of the building? Is it in
It'll be
front
right
of the
here.
building?
It'll disappear.
So nobody could drive into anything there?
No, it'll be a
Okay.
brick wall in front of you.
Okay, great. And then the back, so all traffic will be coming in through the back. Is there access to someone to just walk into the building, like even a resident, if they wanted to walk in from Washington and they could key code to get in?
Yes,
Yes.
through the parking garage, there's access. I'm sorry.
Let me just put this up here. And yes, there is a door from the parking garage directly into the lobby, which I said we would probably be doing some sort of a key fob or something, for
Okay.
that.
Okay. Okay, so my only other questions really are about the front elevation. I completely appreciate the fact that you really went to the limits on what the new overlay district has allowed. I appreciate it. I think that you've done a great job accommodating it. I do love that you have the dip in the parapet, as Mayor Pereira was just showing me. It does mirror what's going on a few doors down. While that building is lower, it is the similar top to it. Other than that, though, I think it's kind of a very plain vanilla building. It doesn't kind of have a character to it, which I was hoping aesthetically, because of where it is, we kind of want it to be a little more inviting. I mean, even your doors are kind of set back. Those windows, I know you said it's 11 feet in height. I'm not sure how large those windows are. I was just hoping that from a first floor elevation, it would just be a more inviting space. I think at the top, you've accommodated the village and giving it some character to the village. I would just like for you to maybe show us some additional elevations to add some character to it. It doesn't look appealing to me in that regard. And I think that we're trying to rebuild. I know it's just, anything there is gonna look better than what looks there now, because there's a fire wall, tarps, all this craziness. So anything's gonna be clean and neat and appreciated, but I think it needs to be a little more inviting as a residence.
I know
It's
one of the
just-
things that we had discussed, I'm saying between Mr. Lebrano, and myself, was the addition of some awnings, over
Yes.
these spaces as if they were retail spaces.
Yes.
It's not atypical, and I'll say nowadays, to even see some of those things brought to the upper part
Mhm.
of a building so that they tie them, together.
Mhm.
And, I do think that if there's going to be signage, on the building, and I recognize we probably have to come back again,
Of
for signage, but, it could be something that's done very nicely, that would lend, an aesthetic to the overall building.
Yes.
And, I think that would be the kind of thing, because I recognize what you're saying, and, and I drove up and down and up and down, and you don't see those buildings that are of a vintage of 1930s or
Mhm.
whatever, with a whole lot of other detail, in them. I mean, generally, even we looked at the bank building down on the corner, and they used two different colors of brick, and we looked at two different colors of brick, and
Mhm.
it just didn't look right,
Mhm.
to me. But I understand, what you're saying, and I think that those kinds of things could really be, a very simple and nice element that would really make this pop as you're driving down the street. We can put lighting underneath those that will wash down, you know,
Yeah.
over the,
Yeah.
you know, over the front of the building, you know, and those are easy things, you know,
Yeah,
for
I
us to do.
appreciate that you're looking at what's there now very
Yeah.
much. But those things would make the difference and make it stand out. And while I know what's there is older and maybe a little more plain, we're trying to re-envision what's going to be there for a very long time.
Sure.
So even if it's little things like awnings, just to make
Yeah.
it feel welcoming to our community would be wonderful.
If
Got
I
it.
could say, you know, I'd look forward to an opportunity to even meet with Mr. Savino as part of the facade program and ask him what architectural details he sees would fit in with some of the other properties he's doing in the area. And our goal is to blend in and to make it look like whatever else he had in mind. So we're open to all those ideas. This
Great.
is just a first step in a
Yeah.
sense.
I appreciate it. And I think as far as the apartments go and what you've done to fit into the overlay, it's perfect otherwise. So, thank you. If you just
Thank you.
take that into
And a very
consideration.
astute observation regarding the chargers for the cars, because I do believe that shortly, we're going to see those things coming
It's
into
the way of the
state
future.
code,
So
you
we
know,
had
where
some
they're gonna be
robotics kids in
required.
here earlier. They could probably help you figure
That's
out how to
true.
do that.
Yeah, that was fascinating.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yeah, and to the deputy mayor's point, absolutely, I think we all kind of had that reservation when we got that elevation, but I think that the bones are good, but those little accents, whether they be, you know, gooseneck lighting to match what we're using, and we do have a palette, a village palette for awnings, for signs, for lighting, that Mr. Savino, so those look, because our vision was always, because as the deputy mayor said, and as you said, those other buildings that you used as an inspiration, they're very plain, but they have businesses with colorful signs and things in the window that break up that monotony. And here, that first level of parking doesn't have anything to break it up. So awnings with the name of the building, you know, some kind of accent perhaps on that top cornice there,
Yeah,
the,
we're looking-
you
I
know, the
was looking-
Lebrano building or something,
I was
right?
looking for something, you know,
Something
up
there.
in that area.
Perhaps
as well.
stealing something from the firehouse, you're taking from the east, take from the west, you know, they have those just little corner pieces of white that pop, just adding that to the side, so perhaps a little bit of inspiration from the east, a little bit of inspiration from the west, kind of add some accent, because the vision was that when someone was driving down Jericho Turnpike, they would not blink and look at this and say, wait a second, this does not look like a store. We wanted to look like it fits in to the rest of the corridor as much as possible. And I don't think you have to do a whole lot. We're not asking you to, you know, throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Well, if I could say, my goal is this is something that's going to be in my family forever. Two of my children are here today, grown children, because they're going to one day be taking care of this, not me. So we're not looking to put up something that's not aesthetically pleasing. In fact, if you look at the side elevation of the side facing the firehouse, when we're having discussion of what that should look like, one of the conversations we had is the least expensive way to just make it a stucco wall, one solid cement wall. It was the least expensive, and we had a conversation that people driving down Jericho Turnpike are going to see this big blank wall that'll look like a factory of some sort. And that's when David came up with continuing the brick on the side and doing those different elevations of the brick to give it a more aesthetically pleasing look. We could have done a cheaper way. We're not looking to do that. So any recommendations you have in terms of the gooseneck lighting or awnings, we're gung-ho for that.
Great, excellent, thank you. Trustee Casado.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Wood frame construction?
Yeah, it'll be wood
The
frame.
whole thing is wood frame.
Not the, well, the first floor.
Except they call it a podium. The podium will be, that will be concrete.
Okay.
In there, again, required by the building code, because you've got cars, that are underneath that.
Okay. Now, you talked about the brick facade. East wall as well will get brick?
The east wall, we discussed the east wall. That's the side you really can't see.
From here.
That's in there.
Well, because
So-
my concern is, what happens if the property owner decides not to build anything? You're gonna have a 40-foot wall that's gonna be what, painted white? Or
No.
are you gonna brick it, or?
We didn't know yet what was happening with the property next door. So depending on what happens there, we would that will determine what that wall would be like. If they build something up to somewhere near our height, then we don't have to worry about it, but if they do.
But how do you know that? I mean, so you're gonna build this building, and you're gonna leave it blank until
No.
So what happens?
Yeah, well, I mean, what we considered, you know, on that, because your point is completely valid, you know, is where that existing building is now, and it does have a bit of a roof, you know, above that. And, you know, in terms of the rest of that wall, you know, I think it would, you know, be at the discretion of the board in terms of if we want the brick there. There's an expense, I mean, to putting, you know, the brick there rather than, you know, doing a stucco wall on that would be painted to match the brick.
But that's my point. So if you started building tomorrow, how would you finish that wall? Just cinder block and paint it, or brick it? I mean, how would you start that? What would you do?
In terms of that wall, you know, we would probably just put stucco onto that wall. You know, if the board would like brick, then we're gonna put brick on it.
Okay. That's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Trustee Clark?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I have to say, I agree with my colleagues. When I saw the rendering, I was kind of like, 3 years, you know, kind of lacks anything. So I really like to see any kind of changes we can make to the front of the building, dress it up a little bit. As the mayor says, look to the firehouse, which has got a lot of character, a lot of, you know, interesting lighting. And as the deputy mayor said, this is going to be here for a long time. You know, we want to represent the village and not look like a warehouse in the middle of Jericho Turnpike. So anything you can do to dress it up would be great. I think the charging stations also are a must. That should be, you know, something you need to take care of. And it was just, I wasn't clear on the superintendent or the building. That would be one of that's the chef who acts as a super?
No, there's somebody who worked for me for many, many years and still does on occasion, Hector Escobar. He works for Mineola Sanitation Department as well in the mornings. And over the years, anytime I've had, he's also, him and his family own a construction company, so they're handy with repairs and such. And anytime I've had a problem in any of my restaurants or, you know, even this one beforehand, I would call up Hector and say, Hector, can you come down and fix this? And he would come that same day. And since he's in Mineola every morning, and he's done working by early afternoon, he would be my go-to guy for any kind of repairs.
Okay.
But I would be available at all times as well.
I think you should reconsider where you're having the garbage disposal. I think that's too close to the building. You might want to move it further back.
Okay, anything else,
Okay.
Trustee Clark?
No, that's it.
Trustee Salaski?
Thank you for being so open to our comments or our desires for this building. I truly appreciate that you're so open to the suggestions that have been given. And the charging station, I never would have thought of. That was a great catch there. The garbage, that's where I am with the trash. I'm assuming, depending on the floor, you'll throw it down a chute?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, so you're gonna have to come outside?
They'll come outside.
Okay, now, okay, which is fine. Now, the dumpster that they're throwing it in, that's going to be enclosed?
Yes, that'll be back in here.
Could I get into that enclosure? Or will you need a key fob to get into that dumpster?
We haven't really thought
Thought
about
that far ahead.
You know, I'm just thinking of people coming along and tossing their garbage into this as the days
Yeah.
go on. And then I'm also concerned if there's not a key fob or a gate that will always be locked, I'm always nervous about rats and animals. So, you know, I was thinking if this dumpster could be enclosed with a key fob to get into it for the tenants to put their garbage in, it avoids outsiders from coming in. Not that the residents of Mineola would ever do that outside the village. Plus, it would also keep rats and animals out of the dumpster.
Well, I did have a restaurant there operating for 18 years.
Right.
That had nastier garbage than any apartment building will
I'm
ever
sure.
have. And we had the dumpsters were there, or they were gated, but there was never a lock on them in all those years. And I've really never, I don't think I've ever had an issue with outsiders coming to throw garbage into my dumpster.
Okay.
Just really never been an issue until now. I don't know if that's something new that goes on now, but it hasn't happened in the 18 years I was there. But if you need it to be locked, look, we're looking at this project not just as, this is what I want to do. I'm saying, this is a collaboration between what's good for me and what's good for the village. And whatever suggestions or recommendations or priorities you have, we're open to them. We're not looking to fight any of it.
I think it certainly could, and I apologize for
No.
interrupting, I just want to punctuate
Sure.
that point. I think it certainly could be gated. It's typical even to have some sort of a fencing gate. It probably would have ended up there, anyway. I think just the ability to lock it and have each tenant have access to that lock could be tough, to get that part in. But I think fencing it off, makes complete sense.
And to your point, we also have to remember that in that kind of key that you see there, just down from there, that belongs to the service garage next door, usually full of cars. So somebody would have to walk, probably 50 or 60 feet into that through cars to go and, throw garbage out. I believe it or not, we do see it, but usually with dumpsters that are closer to the street or right at a sidewalk or something like that, like you see at, CVS, for example, it's easy access. I don't think that most people would even know that it would be back there. And that is not under the building, right? That's
No.
open. And I'm sorry for interrupting, you
No,
made me
that's-
think of something.
that's okay.
What about garbage pickup? How often?
Okay,
Times?
I was going to speak to that, and, and then Mr. Lebrano can as well. The type of dumpsters that we'd be using here, these are not going to be a big dumpster because, a truck can't get in here to pick it up. These will be rolling dumpsters, okay, which are very common, in smaller apartment buildings, and you've probably seen them. They're probably about 6 feet long or so, about 3 feet wide, and there could be 4 of them, back there. They still have a closing cover, on them, and they're on wheels, and then Mr. Lebrano's gonna have to get the garbage out to there on the pickup days.
And obviously, we don't know yet how often that will be.
No.
I mean, I
When it was
guess
a restaurant,
it will be dictated by demand. Right.
When it was a restaurant, I started off with 4 times a week, and I realized I could get by with 3, and for many years, I was 3 times a week, they came and picked up my garbage. I guess it's kind of a wait and figure out and see.
Right. And I think the benefit that you have here, other than your own residence, is that there's really no residential properties in close proximity that you would be inconveniencing if you were picking it up one day more or one day less. So that's something obviously that could be worked out later.
And also, it's not like I'm at CVS or I'm down the block from It's not that I'm at CVS or I'm down the block from somewhere. You guys can look out your window and you'll see me. If the garbage becomes a problem, I guess I probably get a phone call pretty quick, so I don't think it's gonna be a problem.
Yes. Trustee Salowski.
This gentleman that you called for repairs that you said
Yes.
you'll be using, would he be responsible for cleaning the hallways of the building?
This is new to me.
Okay,
Talk to me about Linguini, I could have a conversation. So I don't really know the details yet. My plan was, I'm a hands-on kind of guy. When I ran the restaurant, I was there all the time. I'm not one to just leave things to other things. Even when we were doing any renovations, we were doing a lot of the work ourselves, myself and my brothers. So my kind of game plan was in the beginning especially is, I want to be here every week. I want to take the leaf blower and clean out the driveway, the parking lot. I want to clean the hallways every week. I want to know what's going on.
and you'll be removing the snow if we get,
Yeah, in
Okay.
fact, what I told David originally is there gonna be a place for me to put a snow blower?
okay,
And that's what that storage room is for.
okay.
So that's kind of the game plan. How that evolves in the future, and if maybe one of my sons takes that over from me at one point, we'll see.
So as of now, you'll be doing that, and then depending on demand or
I got more
whatever.
free time now.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Salowski. The entrance, Mr. Mamina, in the south part there?
Yes.
Yep. Will that be gated?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Are we
So the
gonna-
entrance
are we gonna wanna
into the
gate-
parking lot, will that be gated, or will not that they would do this, one of our employees, a firefighter to a call, if that's open, he's just gonna pull right in there. Like, how are you going to protect, maybe a sliding gate with a key fob? I know that my in-laws live, my father-in-law lives in a gated community where he hits a button, the arm goes up, or any kind of arm, because or else you're gonna have the car repair guy next door, you know, storing cars there, or I'm just gonna leave it here for a minute. Somebody's coming across the street to pay a ticket. Oh, this must be village parking, we're gonna park in there. How are you gonna protect your property?
Well, we have a gate there right now, which
Right.
we've really never closed other than few rare occasions. And we really haven't had that much problem with it. I have a relationship with the mechanic next door, and I always told him, look, in the morning when I'm not there, if you need to use my lot, please feel free to use it. I let him use it now. I say, and he calls me and has my number. If there's any problems, he lets me know. But I've never had an issue with it in the past. I'm not sure if it's,
I mean,
If it's
it's
gonna
not
be-
something that we would require you to do, but it may be something that eventually you may wanna do, and that would also solve the garbage problem.
Right.
Because now no one
Can get in.
can get into your property. There would be no access, you know, one of these electronic gates or an electronic arm. And I'm only asking that, those are not conditions that our decision will be contingent on, at least as I see it, but just as we're sharing kind of ideas, something to think about. Not that I want to spend your money for you. And I would also say that as far as the electric charging station, I'm all about looking to the future, but I would certainly be very careful and do my homework, because that does open up a Pandora's box for insurance, for fire, because some of these things have been known to ignite, and it may be, you know, not worth the hassle at this point. But
We're looking
that's
to-
up to you.
if I could clarify one other point. I made a comment a few minutes ago about maybe one of my sons would one day be taking care of this, and I got to look for my daughter because I forgot she might be doing it also. Just, you know.
Listen, if we really wanted to embarrass you, we would ask you to come up and you get on TV and all that, so.
We're good?
Very
Okay.
good. Mission accomplished. Anything else from the board?
Yep. That just raised another question in my mind. Two quick things. The gate by the parking lot, that also would relieve some security. As a woman, if it's 11 o'clock at night and I'm going into my parking garage, I don't want someone following me in there and then, you know, forcing their way into the door with me. So that's a security issue that you may want to consider. And I know I brought up the e-spots and all that, but I'm also thinking, you know, there's electric scooters and other things, as the mayor mentioned, that ignite on fire. I don't know the fire codes. I'm sure my fellow trustees do know the fire codes, but maybe we should consider not allowing them up in the apartments and having a location for them somewhere downstairs. Bikes and e-bikes, just a thought.
No, I've read articles also in the paper about those e-bikes in New York City apartments catching on fire and
Right,
such.
they're all over the news,
So
and I'm sure
it-
there's codes for it,
So
so,
I'm not sure what the
Just something
rules
to
are, but
consider.
we're certainly interested in following all the rules, you know, out there.
thank you, that's all I have.
Okay, so we'll ask you to have a seat, and we'll open it up to public comment. Anyone in the second row? Anyone in the third row? Come on up. Just a reminder, when you approach the podium, please speak clearly, state your name and your address. Good
Hi,
evening.
everyone. I'm Gregory Hunter, 177 Banbury Road. And I was sitting thinking of the tenants. The tenants are excited. They're the first tenants in the overlay district. The tenants on the top level, they're 40 feet up. They've got nice views of Mineola. Maybe there'll be other tenants in other buildings that high up in the future. They're excited. They move in. They open their windows, and they are immediately blanketed by charcoal smog coming from the restaurant across the street. As a part of the overlay district, isn't it time to do something about this? As a board, we're going to have tenants moving in 40 feet up, higher than the exhaust. I know it's not, I'm sorry, it's not yours. It's just the rest of us in the area live with this all the time. And I hope the trustees will, in a different time, a different place, think this one through as a part of the overlay district.
Thank you, I appreciate your comments, thank you. Anyone else in the third row? Fourth row? Fifth row? Sixth row? Yep.
Good evening, Joel Harris, 15 Shortridge Drive, Mineola. I am a 54-year resident of Mineola, very soon to be 55. Forgive me, I didn't address the board properly, Mayor Paul and trustees. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I just want to let you know that as a resident of Mineola, I am really a proponent. I'm for this project. I think it's great for Mineola. We unfortunately are losing Piccola Bussola, which I'm really not happy about. But we're bringing in people on Jericho Turnpike that will then have the opportunity to utilize the stores that are already there. We have restaurants there, we have clothing stores there, we have nail salons, hair salons, all types of places that people can utilize. And they're going to be right across the street, aside from the stores that are on the same side that they live on. So I think this would be very, very nice for Mineola. And again, this is a product of the overlay district to bring in residents to be able to utilize the services that we already have. So while I understand there are a few changes and a few pieces that need to be addressed, overall, I think this is a great project for Mineola.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Harris. Anyone in the seventh row? Okay, anyone else? Come on, back up. Mr. Yulin, you in the third row, he's like one of my students who wasn't paying attention. Yes, we were going in alphabetical order, so you're last.
Rick Yulin, 431 Foch Boulevard, Mineola. I have a couple of just concerns that I'd like the board and the applicant to address possibly. The price point on this building is going to be probably higher on the rent than the surrounding areas. Going down the road, if there's a problem in terms of renting apartments, will they be opened up to multiple families or larger groups going into the apartment? And what's the impact on the parking? You know, it's not close to the train station, so it's more likely people will have two cars rather than one car. So the two questions I have, you have 27 spots, but what happens to the overflow parking? And two, what happens, some of the buildings in the area have more than 3 or 4 people in them. So is that going to be an issue?
Anything else? Okay. Anyone else wishing to speak, to make a public comment? Okay, come on up. So I think we only had Mr. Hunter's issues not really relevant to the application, so we're not going to ask you that. Mr. Yulin's, your price point, if you've gotten that far, what is your price point and what impact do you think that that has on, surrounding rent?
Obviously, I'm here to make money. The most I can get, I'm going to try for, but I don't know what that number is just yet. We have some vague ideas, but we're really doing some, David has been looking into some studies of what rents may go for into something like this. But he questioned about the parking issue, and about apartments might be vacant, and I may have to take somebody I might otherwise take. In the 18 years that I ran the restaurant, I had 4 apartments above it. I never went 30 days with an empty apartment, so there's certainly a demand there. I don't anticipate they're going to be difficult to rent. As far as parking, when I was the restaurant there, the place held 270 people. On a busy night, on a holiday especially, I could serve 500 people. That could be better than 200 cars coming through that driveway. There were plenty of times where cars were lined up on Jericho Turnpike going more than halfway down the block in that right lane waiting for their turn for the valet to take their car. And I only had 10 spots of my own at that point. And so the idea that this is somehow going to affect parking, I think this is a very positive impact, if anything, because I'm only having 18 apartments, not 270 clients in a restaurant at one time. And I had 10 spots before, now I have 27. So I don't see how it's, should be any problem for
How many
anybody.
of those 10, how many, bless you, how many of those 10 spots were dedicated to the 4 apartments above?
None.
None. And I think that that's my point, and that was my point originally with this overlay district, if I can kind of editorialize here, was if you go to the east and to the north of the subject property, every single apartment that is on Jericho Turnpike between Willis Avenue and Mineola Boulevard, whether they have 2 apartments, 4 apartments, 6 apartments, every single one of them has 0 parking spots, every single one of them. So if Mr. Lobrano were to have put the restaurant back with 4 apartments or 6 apartments above, he would provide 0 spots for the tenants. He would be required to provide 0. Which is what is there across the street, down the street. And to Mr. Euland's point, I do understand that there are landlords in this village, unfortunately, historically, although I think that there are fewer and fewer of them who take advantage of people, take advantage of the system, game the system, and perhaps, put more people in an apartment than should be, overloading our schools and overloading our parking, and that certainly is a concern. I don't think, personally, that this is going to be the issue here. You had school-age children before in the apartments above, at some point?
At one point, I had one young lady, she moved in there when she was 8 years old, and she was 18 when the fire, 19 when the fire took place, so she grew up there. And then my chef had 3 little boys that are, only one was school-aged at the time.
Right. So again, I don't think it's gonna have a massive impact on our schools per se. And again, the other beauty of the location of this property is that there is a village lot just to the west, and then there's a larger village lot further west on the other side of the firehouse that obviously guests, overflow parking, which is what happened when you had the restaurant anyway. So if, in my vision, if this application in this spot, it's one of the few, as Mr. Mimina mentioned, that goes from Jericho Turnpike to the street behind it completely, cuts through completely. Essentially, we're actually gaining a parking spot, Mr. Euland, on Jericho Turnpike, because that curb cut's going to disappear, and that's going to become a parking spot. If our vision, and it could be flawed, it could be wrong, you could disagree completely, but this is kind of the vision that we had. There is parking. This would work on Mr. Hunter before. This would not work backing up to Banbury, in my opinion. If Mr. Lobrano came here and he said, you know what, I want to do the same thing across the street, at, I don't know, the Knights of Columbus or something like that, wouldn't work. It wouldn't work because I wouldn't allow it to happen, just speaking for myself, because it would be abutting single-family residential homes. Here, it's abutting Village Hall, a firehouse, and commercial uses and other rental properties on Jericho Turnpike. So that's just my opinion there. So I think the parking, 1.5 is reasonable, and I do agree with Mr. Euland that perhaps this is wouldn't be considered TOD, transit-oriented development, because it's far from the train station. But I also see, in my own experience as a teacher, that there are more and more people that just don't drive, that they take, Ubers, they take, public transportation. I remember when I was growing up, as soon as you could get your license, you drove. I have 2 nephews who are in their early 20s. Neither one of them has their license, and they don't need it because they can just get everywhere, public transportation, Uber, etc. But not discounting what Mr. Euland is saying, that I do think that on average, what we're finding is that in the developments by the train station, they are probably at around 1.2, 1.25 spots, although we still require 1.5, that they are not filling those spots. But here I think 1.5 is sufficient, especially considering what was there and what can be there as of right with 0 spots. So, just my opinion.
Just to clarify, you said it's not transit-oriented housing. Technically, it's 1 mile from a railroad station. I'm 9/10, so I still qualify.
All right. I stand I have seen people walk further than that. We've actually had residents here, perhaps even on Banbury, people, outsiders, parking on Mineola Boulevard, Banbury, Linden, et cetera, and then walking to the train station. So, to your point, yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe it is considered TOD. Okay, anyone else from the board? Anyone else from the public? Yes, sir.
It's a shame the audience didn't get to look at the rendering, so, but anyway, Joe Grillo, 318 Wellington Road here in Mineola. Grillo, Grilo. And Mr. Harris said that he was a resident here for 55 years, going to be 55 years? That should be, in 1 month, it'll be 76 years.
How's that possible? You're only 59.
Well, thank you very much. There's been concern about the, comfort of the apartment and everything. Being right next to the firehouse, and that siren can go off at any time. And there will be a lot of activity because we have a very fine, active fire department, which, in all honesty, and I'm not showboating, but I think maybe the people here who live in Mineola, who will be depending on our fire department, maybe a round of applause for them to say thank you very much. I'm not running for office. I'm just concerned about the noise from the siren. Is there some kind of buffering that would help, alleviate it? Because it's right next door.
Right, so believe it or not, we actually did discuss that. The siren was there when Mr. Lebrano had his restaurant. The siren is going to stay there. Unlike Wilston Park, our siren, I believe, is shut down from 10 to 7.
I think 7 to 7. Is it 7 to
Overnight,
7?
it does not go off unless it's a working fire. So in other words, Wilston Park, it's 24/7. Mineola, I believe, from either 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. or overnight, it will not go off. Even if a fire call comes in, they'll get it on their pagers, on their cell phones, but the siren won't go off. So the residents, on the rare occasion that there may be a working fire overnight, it would not go off. So it would only go off, it goes off at 6 p.m. obviously, and any fires during the day where you would think most of these people wouldn't be home anyway. But, Chief, would you like to elaborate on that?
Yeah, it's critical to have the horn go off during the daylight hours. Guys don't always carry their pages, the pool, or cutting the lawn, and they don't hear their pages, so hearing the horns go off is necessary during the day. The overnight hours with the pages and
Certainly.
text messages, we can work around it.
And I'm just wondering if someone happens to move in and doesn't realize there's a firehouse next door.
They'll learn fast enough.
That would be tough. That's tough to miss.
So, which may cause, just a little bit of a problem to Mr. Lebrano. That's the only reason I brought that up. So, I think it's a worthwhile project, and I wish the Lebranos a lot of luck because they deserve it for all that they've given Mineola through all of these years. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mamina, I have a few more questions for you.
If I may, before you start.
Sure.
I grew up in Mineola.
You're not gonna beat him at 76
No.
years, right?
Almost there, but I say I'm 35 with 35 years of experience.
Right.
That's all. But I grew up in Mineola until I was 21 years old when I got married. And when that 6 o'clock whistle went off, if you were not at the dining room table, you were in big trouble. And there were many nights I sprinted on my bike back to Hampton Street, so I'd be sitting at that dining room table. But
That's great. What would you project the the duration of the build would be from start to finish? I mean, I don't need to nail you down, but is this a 12-month, an 18-month, a 24-month?
I think it's 18 months.
18 months?
Yeah, 18 months.
And you're
Could
ready
be-
to go?
could be
You-
shorter.
You have,
Well, we don't have building permits
no,
or
no, no,
anything
no,
yet, you know,
but
so
what I'm saying is you have a GC, you obviously have plans, you
we've
have,
been, yes, we've been
all that.
working with a GC from the beginning. So we have the conceptual plans, here, that would then be developed into the construction documents.
and also to address, again, continuing with Mr. Yulin's concern, since this is going to be a stick wood frame build, does the code answer or address like maximum loads, in other words, in terms of?
Absolutely.
Right, so
Yeah.
you would be subject to those maximum loads?
Absolutely, as if it were a concrete building. Yeah, and, I mean, you see so much construction is wood now. I grew up with steel and mortar and concrete, but the codes have changed, and wood buildings are being built, 5 stories high, and giant hotels, and, the whole thing. But, yeah, I actually think that this will end up being, a more robust building, because we most probably will not be using the wooden trusses, that you see. And I do know that fire departments generally will not go into a building that's constructed of those trusses, and we are required by building code to have an emblem on the outside of any building that is constructed with trusses in order to protect the firefighters. We'll be using what we call dimensional lumber, which is, if you go to Home Depot, a 2x12 is a 2x12, and a 2x4 is a 2x4, because the spans in this building are relatively small. I mean, it's the floor plate is 5,600 square feet. So it's almost going to be like building a house, on top of this concrete podium.
And for those of you that couldn't see in the audience or at home, the building does not stretch the entirety of the property. The building essentially just a little less than halfway. So as you're driving east on Jericho Turnpike, you're not going to encounter this, 200-foot wall, 4 stories high, but rather a building that is not going to be looking tremendously out of place, especially in light of the firehouse right next door, but also one that then drops off and has the back of it completely open to the sky. And, one thing that your elevation doesn't show is that we do have that little pocket park with our traditional Christmas tree there.
Yes.
That certainly breaks up that, kind of scene. Yes, if you're sitting in the firehouse and you're looking east, you'll see this massive wall. But if you're on Jericho, there will be some visual kind of, speed bumps there to break up that kind of monotonous wall.
Yeah, and yes, the wall is approximately 72 feet. So if you consider a house that is on a 60 by 100 lot, just imagine it being a little bit wider. That's the whole length, of that wall. So and we were very conscious, about that. That was something that I felt very strongly about, that as you're heading east, you shouldn't look at, some gigantic wall there. So, I do agree, with your comments that, and making that comment on the record, that wall compared to the overall length of a through block to through block, or even if we were to look at the firehouse, and how long the firehouse is, for obvious reasons, and we need that for the firehouse. So, this, we stepped it, in this area so that we would shorten that wall over there. So, I mean, those are little nuances, but, we look carefully at that.
Okay, very good. Other than working on some of those aesthetics, which we will continue to work on with you, I don't have any other questions. Does anyone else have any questions? No. Mr. Gibbons?
Yes, Mayor.
Is there any Nassau County Planning Commission, local determination, so we can vote on this?
The application's ready to vote.
Okay. It's going to be 3 years, Mr. Lubrano, since the fire?
Yes, this coming August, will be 27th, will be 3 years.
3 years. I, for one, think it's been long enough. this project fits into the overlay district, when we envisioned it, when we discussed it, when we had hearings on it, when we voted on it. So I would entertain a motion to vote on this evening, and I would entertain a motion to approve the application.
Motion.
Motion by Deputy Mayor Sartori. Does anyone have second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Salaski. Mr. Rivera, please poll the board.
Trustee Clark,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sartori,
Yes.
Trustee Casado,
Yes.
Trustee Salaski,
Yes.
Mayor Pereira.
Yes. Okay. So congratulations. Congratulations, and thank you. You know, usually we say welcome to Mineola, but thank you for, thank you for staying in Mineola.
Wait, do you want me to talk to the chamber?
You can join the chamber if you'd like. But I do, the great thing about going first is you're first, but also you're going to set the example. So obviously, work closely, not only with our building department, with our attorneys, with our water department, with our DPW, with our fire department, every step of the way, so that this can go as smoothly as possible, and so that we don't have to wait 3 more years to do a ribbon cutting, okay? Congratulations, best of luck to you, and very excited about this next chapter in the village, and that you're a part of it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Best of luck.
Great night. I'll entertain a motion to close the hearing.
Motion.
Motion by Deputy Mayor Sartori. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Trustee Salaski. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We will be out momentarily for a brief work session, but we'll give you a chance to empty the room. Have a good night, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for coming out.
You're over there, like,